Chest up, shoulders back. Welcome to Revival Fitness, everybody. And I'm going to say some things in this video that may be considered sacrilege, even though the people that defend them ultimately don't know what they're talking about. I'm here to tell you that tracking calories is not nearly as simple as you have been led to believe. It doesn't matter if you're in a deficit, at maintenance, or in a surplus. And every time I discuss this, which I'm prone to do on this channel, every time we talk about bulking, I've recommended numerous times that a lot of beginners are going to have to bulk for up to 2 years to really milk out their intermediate gains and beyond to get really big and strong. And like clockwork, every time I discuss this, there's one or more people in the comment section scared for their lives, the bulk phobics, thinking that this is somehow dangerous or terrible advice. Bro, a 500 kcal surplus will always equal 1 pound gain a week. This is basic science. Unless someone is severely underweight, I would not suggest that much of a weight gain for almost anyone. No one on this channel has a basic understanding of what a caloric surplus is, and it's embarrassing. Coming from the guy who does not understand caloric surplus. You can't make this stuff up, guys. Guys like this, the ones who comment this type of thing, these are the dudes who live on Reddit. Okay, they think everything in life is confined to a set equation on a piece of paper, and it's guaranteed to be that way. No, it's not. Okay, guys, we're talking about the human body here. This is not measuring the dimensions of a building or a car or something like that. This is the human body. A sentient ecosystem with tons of internal processes happening at one time, of which we have no serious control over, and really there's no way to accurately track all of them. So remember, in theory, if we eat at a 500 calorie surplus for a year, we're guaranteed to gain 1 pound a week on that surplus, which means someone's gonna gain 52 pounds in a year, according to these people. And we're about to debunk that notion by diving into all of these processes and the factors that go into this. But please understand this, guys. I've said this before, I'll say it again. A caloric surplus or deficit, whatever you're doing, it's fundamentally a buffer, okay? It is not an exact, precise measurement. It is not possible to gauge or track that. It's a guaranteed environment of less energy intaken or more energy intaken for an extended period. But even if you don't bulk or cut in general and you're just gonna recomp endlessly forever, you still cannot accurately track your calories to a T. Now, with that said, do I think it's good for beginners in fitness to learn how to track? Yes, I do. I'm not telling you to never track anything and just go in blind to all of your meals. A lot of people do that and they reap what they sow in that context. What I'm telling you though is you need to get out of this fairy tale notion that you're in total control, like God himself, over everything going in and out of your body from an energy context, because you are not, and there's no way to do that. Besides people confined to extreme scientific experiments, there's no way to accurately track this stuff so precisely, guys. I always make the joke about people on here measuring grains of rice, but with that said, let's jump into the factors that affect the overall energy intake and expenditure of the individual. And the first thing we're going to talk about here is food labeling. I don't know what this is like for other nations, guys, but at least in the United States, every single food producer is given a plus or minus 20% margin of error on the labeling of their products. Every single product, 20%. That is a significant margin of error no matter how you slice it. And let's be modest for the sake of example. Let's say that your margin of error is only 5% on the labels of which you're tracking. It starts to compound when you take into account eating out, whenever you're not controlling what you're eating. If you tend to eat different things all the time, there's minimal consistency in your diet, this really can start to add up. And on top of that, there is the potential discrepancy of weighing your food when it comes raw in the package versus when it's cooked. So take a cup of rice, for example. A lot of people, if they say 1 cup of rice, they're talking about raw rice right out of the bag. Other people, even if they're in the same household, for example, they may count 1 cup of rice as after being cooked in water. So for that reason, 2 people on the same diet, based on when they measure their food, they could have different caloric intakes based on that alone. Just main gain on 30 extra calories, bro. And once again, guys, I am not telling you to never track. I'm not telling you to just eat whatever and go in blind to all your meals, but you need to accept that your tracking and the labels in general of food are fundamentally ballpark estimates. They give you a good general idea, but they're not a precise science. Not to mention all the linguistic deception and marketing gimmicks that these food labels also use, but that's for another video. So the next topic we're going to discuss here is TEF, or the thermic effect of food. And we're not talking about the bastardized version that V-Shred uses in his ads.
I've gone out of my way and I've basically figured out which foods, or I've discovered and I've done my research on which foods have the highest thermic effect.
This is a scientific reality, and it's pretty simple. Essentially, certain foods take more energy to digest, which means your overall energy expenditure increases a bit. And generally speaking, foods higher in protein have the highest thermic effect. Thermic effect can also vary based on the macro and micronutrient content in food. So for example, carbohydrate sources that are higher in fiber, they tend to have a higher thermic effect for the same reason. They take more energy to digest. What does this fundamentally mean? You're in less of a surplus than you think. The thermic effect of food alone, guys, proves that the 1-to-1 calorie model is not fully accurate. Now, next up, we're going to talk about changing metabolism in accordance with the calorie adjustments. People who train and lift regularly have significantly higher energy needs than people who are sedentary, and even people who lift but more casually, like off and on. On top of that, the younger you are, the higher your metabolism is going to be compared to somebody older than you, assuming that you have a healthy lifestyle. And this is exactly why bulking is perfect to do in the high school to college age window. Ages, say like 16 up to the early 20s, those are excellent times to get your introductory bulks out of the way. And a lot of guys, if you don't want to get like massive and just keep getting bigger and bigger all the time, if you just want to look better in clothes and be healthier, build some baseline muscle, you may never have to truly bulk again if you do it when you're younger. When you're young and especially physically active, you have a lot of leeway to overeat in a surplus for an extended period. A lot of the time, no real long-term ramifications, except in maybe special circumstances. And if that wasn't enough, the younger you are too, assuming you've hit puberty, the faster you're going to be able to add muscle than somebody who is in their 30s, 40s, etc. And just a quick note here too, guys. I know you see endless dudes now on YouTube, gray hair, old head type guys. They're suddenly just big and shredded at the same time. They look way better than they did in their 20s. Just TRT, bro. The point is, young adults see a big shift in overall appetite, body composition, and metabolism, especially if they're active as they grow up. And young men who fit these criteria, young women too, but especially young men, they are energy burning machines. So let's assume that you're building muscle while you're training, which I hope you're doing, right? As you add and maintain muscle to your frame, guess what? Your metabolism is going to increase. It takes energy not just to build muscle itself, but to simply maintain the muscle you've already built. Your overall energy balance can change a good amount simply by adding your first 5 pounds of newbie muscle. You add 10 to 15 pounds of beginner muscle, your body's gonna change pretty considerably. Once you hit 20, 25 plus pounds of muscle, intermediate into advanced stage, you're essentially a different person. Muscle changes everything. And this is one of the reasons why so many people who go to the gym and just hop on the treadmill all the time, or they train very badly, hopscotch on the machines, all this stuff, this is why they commonly yo-yo diet or have prolonged fat loss plateaus. They're not building serious muscle, they're not really changing their body composition. They gain and drop the same 10 pounds of fat and water weight every single year, and they're always confused as to why. Adding muscle is how you fix this problem. So, case in point, we'll use me as an example. Whenever I was a novice, weighing around 155 to 160 pounds in that range, spaghetti noodle days, my maintenance calories, at least according to an online calculator, which again is only a rough estimate, it used to be about 3,000, just under 3,000 per day. Fast forward to now, I'm just under 190 pounds. I'm going to be cutting down this summer, but at the current point I'm at, after bulking for a year and a half, 3,000 calories for me now is a deficit. I'm at the point now where I need roughly 3,500 calories to simply maintain the muscle that I've built. That's 500 extra than what it used to be. And like I've been saying, guys, these online calculators are ballparks, okay? Especially when it comes to the activity level portion. It'll say 1 to 2 times a week, 3 to 4, high intensity athlete, moderate exercise, all this stuff. It's very general. It's just kind of a baseline thing to put in. It's not a guaranteed science, okay? Once again, these are general figures. You're never gonna get this precisely down to a T, no matter what you're doing. So whenever these schmucks come on here, 500 kcal surplus equals 1 pound a week or 52 pounds a year, they're not taking into account your changing metabolic rate as you build muscle. Once again, they think that you're just going to keep the same exact body composition the entire time. As you're building the muscle, your surplus that was 500, it might be even less than that, given that you're expending more energy to hold on to and keep building the muscle. So this gets a lot of guys upset for some reason, but a lot of the time, man, if you think you're in a 500 calorie surplus, you probably have to be closer to 750 or 1,000, once again, roughly speaking, to maintain that buffer in the surplus state. If your overall muscle mass and metabolism stay the exact same for months into a bulking phase, guys, or even beyond, you train like shit. By the time you're 6+ months into a bulking phase, you're more than likely going to hit a point where you accidentally hit your maintenance. That's happened to me before. I've talked about that on this channel, which means you have to continually up it. So they're gonna say, oh, well, that means just 500 calories still. Again, on paper, theoretically, sure, but you're still increasing from the 500 you started out at. So no matter how you look at it, guys, you're gonna have to keep gradually increasing the food intake if you're training and building muscle correctly. And now the final point we're gonna talk about here, TDEE and NEAT. Those two acronyms meaning TDEE, total daily energy expenditure. NEAT stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So for a convenient example here, take myself. I've been standing in this spot. I'm on my standing desk right now for almost 2 hours. I've been filming this particular video up to this point for 40 minutes. Standing the whole time, taking some breaks, pacing back and forth, all this stuff. That means expending more energy compared to if I was doing the same exact task for the same exact amount of time in a seat. And on that note too, the heavier you are, even if you're just morbidly obese, the more energy required to move your body anywhere, simply based on the fact that you're bigger. And on top of that too, even if we take two guys who weigh the exact same, their lifestyle factors outside of the gym can also sway this in one direction or the other. Even if you're not trying to do so, this is the case. Because people commonly will say, okay, 20 minutes on the treadmill, the incline, run this far, etc. Even if you don't intend on expending more energy, guys, you're still doing it. And like we alluded to earlier as well, the calorie calculator you're using online more than likely does not account for the unintentional energy expenditure. Even if your app has inputs for this many steps, walking this far, exercise, etc. Once again, guys, that is not guaranteed, especially when it comes to lifting. Lifting weights doesn't burn a whole lot of calories in its own right. Really, the muscle mass maintenance and acquisition, like we were saying, that's where the long-term caloric implications, the energy expenditure implications, I should say, that's where they really come into play from the gym. But if you're active outside of the gym too, this can really start to add up. Think about this too. Once you get bigger and stronger in the gym, based on the weights you're going to be using, that also affects the energy expenditure. All right, if you have two guys and one deadlifts 315, the other 405, the 405 deadlifter is going to have to make an extra trip to get an extra set of plates. Putting the plates on is going to expend more energy. right? Maybe you load up the leg press more, you squat more, all this stuff, right? It's not massive details, but you snowball it, you compound effect it, it can really start to affect the energy expenditure of your own body in ways you did not intend for. And I believe, guys, you really start to get somewhere in terms of gym gains once you're in a bulking phase and can still do weighted calisthenics. A lot of the time, if you equate out the total weight, say the 165 pound versus 190 pound guy, the 190 pound guy doing body weight pull-ups for 12, let's say that the 165 guy adds a 25 pound plate, it essentially becomes a similar or the same weight equated out, right? So if you can become the guy who's bulking and you're still adding on plates to your dips, your pull-ups, maybe your weighted push-ups, things of that nature, that's when you're really starting to make progress. So once you get to the point, guys, where you can do not only heavy barbells and dumbbells, but calisthenics with weight attached, even in a surplus phase, that's when you know you're starting to do something right. And if you believe that you're on the wrong track now, nutrition, programming, whatever the case is, maybe both, hit me up, guys, for a direct program consultation, online coaching. We offer it all. Check the description, or you can join the Patreon for more casual conversation about your questions. But this has been the video, guys. This one was a doozy. I've been recording way longer than I expected to be, but thank you for watching. Share this with who needs to see it. Like, comment, subscribe, all the stuff you're obligated to do as a viewer. Join me on the journey for the cut this summer. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.